I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. Roll call, please, Sue.
Mr. Arcuri? Mr. Bova?
Here.
Mr. Brodsky?
Here.
Mr. Ford?
Here.
Mr. Coyne?
Present.
Mr. Julia?
Here.
Mr. Ford?
Four. Yes, here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Karam?
Here.
Mr. Rotolo? Ms. Sesney? And Mr. Wallace?
Thank you. You have in your packet the April 17, 2017 draft minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Second. Any additions, corrections, deletions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. You have in your packet the agreement with the town of Westmoreland for meter reading services. Pat, who's going to do this?
What about item
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped
Okay,
ahead.
just a second.
Prospect Real Property Appraisal Services.
Basically, when the Village of Prospect dissolved, they were the owners of property which is located next to the water treatment plant. The property was on the market, and without getting into too much detail because there is some litigation going on with that property, we've been asked to consider purchasing a portion of the property which might be useful to the plant for both access purposes and some other things. And so what the thought is, before we go ahead and make any offer for the property, we would like to have an appraisal to determine what the value of the property is. So at this point, I think that we were looking for, I'm in the process of contacting appraisers. I've spoken with two who I think are too high in cost, so I'm trying to get a lesser rate. We'd like to get a figure. Dick, what were we thinking?
3,500.
3,500 or 4,000, let's say, to hire an appraiser. There are three separate parcels up there that are involved in this, so that you know we're interested in all or a portion of two of them.
This is the one that we saw the demonstration
Yeah.
on, and you showed us the maps. And
Yes,
where
the
it
adjacent
was.
to the sludge management training.
And then after the appraisal, we determine, as I say, whether we make a formal offer or not.
question? What happens if you approach them and ask them for a price? If the price is agreeable to you, then you can save the $3,500.
It, under the current circumstance, it can't be done that way.
So would you like a motion up to a certain amount?
Up to
Authorize-
$4,000.
Up to 4,000 to approve retaining an appraiser.
Any questions? Yes, Vince. Oh, you move it? Is there a second? Any further comments or questions for Dick? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Now on to the agreement with the town of Westmoreland.
Okay.
Are you gonna do that one, Pat?
Yeah, I'll give it a brief overview and then I'll introduce Steve if there's any particular questions. But as you know, with our automated meter reading system, which is a tower-based system of collectors reading radio modems, we are approaching 38,000 or so installations of our own system, which is nearly complete. We're about 95% complete. But along the way, we've been providing this service to a few other municipalities. We are currently doing the reading and billing for Bridgewater all the way down on Route 20, even though they're not part of our system. We entered into an earlier agreement with Westmoreland to do some meters over there, and we've had these kinds of arrangements in the past. We have a new one here. The Village of Westmoreland has asked that their village system that they operate off the central well system needs to have their meters updated and meter reading done, and so we have a proposed agreement with them where we would install, they would pay us to install 260 meters at $195 a unit, which includes our labor, the cost of the meter, and the cost of the radio modem. And then we would bill them for the service, just as we do with Bridgewater and a number of locations where we're doing sewer charges on the water bill as well. So we would add those charges onto a bill where they set their own rates because it's their customers, not ours. We would do the billing, and collect the money and ship it over to them. The cost for the first 2 years would be $4 per bill, per billing period, 4 times a year. That would generate $4,000 as reimbursement towards the installation of the collector, which would go on the Westmoreland tank, their tank. And then once that's collected after the first 2 years, the fee would then drop to $2 per quarterly bill, which is in line with the charges that we charge other folks. So essentially, this is a fairly run-of-the-mill arrangement that we've done now several times in the past. But Steve Gassner and his folks are heading that up out of our Keble Street facility, and Steve's confident that we can take that on and get it done on fairly short notice once we get going and order the meters. But Steve, I'm sure, can answer any questions you might have, if you have.
Any questions?
Net cost to us, to the Mohawk County Water Authority, is to cost us anything, or we breaking even, or we making?
We're pretty much breaking even, maybe a little bit more.
Yes, we're making a few pennies on it. Okay.
Yeah, we usually make anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a year
Yeah.
off each locality just for providing the service. We're not really doing it so much to make money as we are to just, as a regional entity, help our partners in avoiding costs for starting up with software and billing of their own.
That's fine, I just want to make sure that we're not nutting it.
No, we're not going to lose money.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Any other questions? A motion to approve the agreement is presented. Thanks, Frank. Second. Thank you. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Committee reports, finance. Jim, do you have anything for us?
I think you have your monthly financial report in your packet. Consumption overall, just to summarize, consumption overall is similar to last year. So we actually are, we made up some ground and pretty consistent than compared to the prior year. So we don't have that reduction going on. Water sales is where it should be. We're a little above budget. We're very similar to last year, and cash flow is very good. So as we go into the latter part of the year, we'll need that money to make some larger payments. So everything's looking good.
Any questions for Jim?
Yeah, you mentioned the pension liability, you're talking about the amount we have to contribute to the state,
Yeah,
and actually it's gone up again?
pension liability.
Yeah, I mean, the amount we have to.
Well, you're probably talking about the actuarial liability that we.
Oh, the one that we accrue ourselves?
Yeah, that has gone up significantly.
Okay.
That's future costs. That
I
don't.
understand
Yeah, not the
that.
current payment.
Yeah, I know,
Current
I was
payment has
talking about
not.
the payment we make to the state based upon.
Right, that actually has gone down a little.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
So that statement of just over 1 million to 3.2
Right,
million.
that was a large increase that occurred this past year. It's actuarially determined, so unfortunately it's gone way up.
Do we hold that in a balance sheet? Do we?
It's a balance sheet liability. It's on page 2, I think it is.
Page 2, and then it refers
Right,
to 3.
and that actually went up during our audit. That was something that happened last year that we're carrying over, and so each year the state determines that and passes that liability on to us.
Any other questions? Thanks, Jim. Pat?
I only have a couple of things, and obviously the larger one we'll reserve for executive session, but one thing I want to make you aware of is that within the past 3 to 4 weeks or so, we were notified by the state of New York that the state, via executive order for public authorities in the water industry, must do, in fact, all water systems across the state have to do what is called a cybersecurity vulnerability assessment, which means we are required to hire an outside firm that's properly credentialed and certified by the state to probe our systems, look for vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and then tell us what we need to do to fix it. The process needed to commence by June 1, which we did commence as far as contacting companies and receiving quotes. We right now have at least 3 companies that are qualified and certified to do this. The price range is rather large. Dare I scare you? But no, the lowest one just came in today. It's right around $20,000. The high one's about $80,000.
And of course, this is a funded mandate, right?
This is, yeah, of course. However, what's unclear right now is really the overall ability of each of these firms to provide at the same level. As I said, there's quite a disparity in pricing. We really need to dig into it to find out exactly how. Frank Matola, who chairs our operations committee, is also very well versed in these issues, and so he and our IT director, Jim Mack, have had quite a bit of conversation over the last 2 weeks talking about some of these companies and their relative abilities. I would like to recommend that this go through the operations committee, as long as Frank, you're agreeable with that. And then we can really dig into them a little bit deeper, ask questions, find out a little more on references, et cetera, before we're prepared to come back and recommend to the board that one proposal is better than another for whatever reason it might be. We have until December 31st to finish this process and get the findings into the state. Personally, I don't really want to give the state anything until I know how they're going to handle that information. Because when we had to do our first vulnerability assessments right after the attacks of 911, it was unclear where that information was going to be stored and in what form. I think the state will keep it secure, but it'd be nice if they tell us where that information is going to go once we turn it in. I'm sure we'll know all of that as the program unfolds.
Has the state been very specific about vulnerabilities they're interested in, or have they been left general?
Well, they're worried about cyber attacks on water systems, any kind of infiltration through any pits of our platform, whether it's a SCADA system, whether it's our billing, whether it's our banking operations, you name it. So essentially, everything that resides on our platform that could conceivably be reached by outsiders needs to be looked at and checked. So it's a fairly wide scope, and that would also include the Neptune meter reading system. If somebody was able to get into the modem and get into the tower, then the question is there a way they can jump from their software into ours when we transmit data and readings? And so they can plant a virus, they can do a number of things. All of that has to be looked at, and so that's why I think we're seeing a fairly high cost to this proposal.
What's
6 months? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's the length of time that is expected this study and results would take?
We believe the assessment itself should take about 90 days. We have 6 months before we have to get the findings in. So, the burden's going to be on them once they wrap up the testing to develop their findings and give us a final report, which I think we have plenty of time to do that. Would you agree with that, Frank?
Yes.
So it's okay with the chair. I'd like to move this to the operations committee.
Great.
The other thing I wanted to mention to you is also interesting, but this is good news from the state. And you know what, I'm going to let Phil explain this one as far as the award, well, not award, but we were awarded a grant under a proposal that went to the state, was initially denied. And Phil, I will give 100% of the credit to for fighting with the state, getting us back on track, and finally getting it okay to receive the money. So Phil, why don't you explain it?
Brief background, we advanced the capital plan for chemical feed improvements at the plant based on the spill from last year. There was a round of grant funding through the Department of Health for improved fluoridation of public water systems. We went through that grant approval process. It was expected to be awarded last July or August. There was a delay on the state's end. We proceeded with the program, and when the announcement was made in November, they had simply stated that because we had already started the project, we were no longer eligible for funding.
Phil, hang on 1 second.
You're locked in.
Uh-oh, we're all locked in now. Hang on, brief time out. We'll go to our sponsors for a
When you start jumping out the window.
There you go.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you.
She won't be back.
Well, we're not inviting her.
Live in the boardroom.
Do you want them to review the transcript as to where you work?
Very likely.
Thanks.
Okay, Phil.
So we were denied funding in November, but then I did engage in several discussions. So there was a kind of a back channel avenue, a separate round of grant funding that we were awarded, and we anticipate receiving those funds sometime later this summer to the tune of almost $260,000. So essentially, those monies reimburse us for the cost of the chemical feed construction.
All right,
Good.
Good, excellent.
Yeah, state that it's a good one this time. Other than that, I'll stop at that point unless anybody has any questions for me. Bruce?
An article in the paper today or yesterday about the governor announcing a new round of funding for infrastructure.
Yes.
How's that?
We currently have an application being put together that should be submitted in the next
3 weeks.
2-3 weeks.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
one of them is due Friday.
I don't know.
Yeah, I saw in the paper this morning, one of these grants is due Friday. Rome is applying for one of these, it was in the paper this morning.
Yeah, I think that's a category that we're not eligible for. We're not doing any work in that particular area right now. But they do have.
They were looking to expand their water system to an area.
To the lake.
Near the lake, and
It's the intermunicipal
building
Yeah.
houses, but it was, I think it was due Friday, I'm not sure.
Well, we'll double check that just to be sure, but as far as I know, right now, the application we're putting in is going to be well within the deadline.
And we're considering what for that, the big one?
That's for the transmission line upgrade.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So we're going to only be asking for a mere $55 million.
Are we asking for that, for the whole amount?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Any other, yes, Dave?
Yeah, I have one question. Last month, we discussed about the state controller that 1/10%.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
What's the status on that?
Yeah, old business, I guess that falls under, but yeah, we did talk about the fact that the state controller had done an audit of the state labor department and found that the labor department was not enforcing something that apparently has been on the books since the mid-90s, where they were supposed to be charging public authorities 1/10% of construction project costs that was supposed to be remitted to the labor department to go into some sort of fund that would be used for something, but we don't really know exactly what it was supposed to be doing. And the labor department, apparently after 20 years, didn't realize they weren't collecting this money they were supposed to, which makes you question whether they really needed it. However, the controller's office found out they weren't doing it, so they wrote them up twice over a 3 or 4 year period. The labor department then sent us a letter saying, thank you Dave for the reminder, that we now owe this money. And we have taken a position, a letter that I signed that was written by Ken and others, after several conference calls with 7 or 8 other authorities across the state that we stay in close contact with. We all determined that our enabling statutes that created this authority and other authorities contains language that says we're exempt from these kinds of fees, both at the local and the state level. So we sent them a very polite letter saying, under our legislation, we're exempt from this fee, we don't intend to pay it. Please let us know if you think we're wrong. And I don't know, it's been 5 or 6 weeks, I guess. We haven't heard anything yet.
Well, it could be 10 years.
It could be. So,
Well, for another
yeah,
10 years.
but right now, we have no intention of paying anything like that. So,
Great, thank you.
Any other old business?
not that I'm aware of.
Any new business? Are you all done, Pat?
Yes.
We need a motion to go to executive session regarding the negotiation of a possible contract for operations and maintenance at the water treatment plant. Second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
All right.